The topic of masturbation's impact on the brain is complex and can get tricky to explain because, as we all know, the human brain is highly complex. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all explanation. With this in mind, we thought it'd be essential to emphasize the ways masturbation impacts the brain and the damage it could potentially cause. One thing to keep in mind is that masturbation isn't necessarily healthy or dangerous. It all depends on each individual's unique lived experience. Psych2Go's purpose is to educate and enlighten our audience on everything related to mental health, and there is a clear connection between masturbation and mental health. Understanding how it affects our brains gets us one step closer to understanding how it impacts our mental health, for better or for worse. Moreover, understanding these effects can give us a clear picture of why masturbation can transform from a natural bodily response for both men and women into a full-blown compulsive addiction. So, these are the ways masturbation can negatively affect your brain. Let's get into it. Dopamine disruption. Overindulgence in any pleasurable activity can overstimulate the brain's reward system, potentially desensitizing it to other sources of pleasure, like eating our favorite food or listening to music. Masturbation triggers the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure and reward in the brain, also referred to as the feel-good hormone. In 2021, a study on the hormonal response after masturbation, which can be found in the National Library of Medicine, was conducted on young, healthy men to determine how it impacts their hormones, such as testosterone, prolactin, and dopamine. The researchers found that it did have an impact on testosterone and other hormones, including dopamine, after orgasm. Studies have shown that prolactin levels increase, whereas oxytocin and dopamine levels decrease significantly. This right here can explain why it can become increasingly difficult to reach orgasm after masturbation if done too frequently. Because as Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist and popular podcaster puts it, the brain treats these experiences as intense dopamine-releasing events, akin to drug use, which with habitual repetition can lead to progressively less dopamine release and tolerance, resulting in a need for more intense stimulation over time. Distorted reality and relationships. How can compulsive masturbation distort the way our brains respond to sex with another person? Well, it begins at the brain's reward center, also referred to as the pleasure center, which activates an area of the brain called the ventral tegmental area, VTA. This is where all the neurotransmitters you've heard about, such as dopamine, are released. Compulsive masturbation causes the brain to constantly chase the euphoric high we get from reaching orgasm with increasing difficulty. Here's a simple way of looking at it. When electricity is overused, it can cause circuits to go haywire, such as flickering lights and overheating. This is called circuit overload. Something similar happens to the brain. When our brains are in constant search for the dopamine high from reaching orgasm during masturbation, this can make the circuits in our brain go into a frenzy, and reaching orgasm requires more intense sexual stimuli for the brain to visualize. For example, fetish porn. This can result in developing unrealistic expectations for sexual encounters in real life. Worse, a romantic or sexual partner may then feel inadequate or pressured, which can strain communication and emotional closeness for both parties, akin to a blown fuse. Guilt. In an academic article titled "Masturbatory Guilt Leading to Severe Depression," the authors examined the case of a young male who exhibited severe symptoms of major depressive disorder, such as suicidal thoughts, lack of sleep, and appetite, which was partly due to the guilt he felt over masturbating. When asked why he felt this way, the young man's reasons were, 1, he believed that masturbation ruined his life, and 2, believing that he was engaging in a prohibited or sinful act. Gradually, the young man started to show drastic improvement in his mental health. However, he firmly maintained the belief that masturbation was the direct cause of his symptoms that spiraled him into depression. Not only is this a clear example of cognitive dissonance, but it demonstrates that what's completely normal and healthy for one person can be destructive for another. With a narrow worldview, it's easy to assume that everyone views masturbation as a healthy bodily function and just dismiss and denounce other cultural perspectives. but that's neither productive nor empathetic. If masturbation goes against one's beliefs, then engaging in it can cause mental distress, especially if it transforms into a full-blown addiction. And since mental health issues directly affect our brain function, it's important to understand that for some people, this can cause legitimate damage. With that being said, spreading awareness and education is key to eliminating stigma and shame around sexual topics. But that's only possible if done with empathy, understanding, and compassion for other people's beliefs and cultures. Trauma. You may be wondering exactly how trauma intersects with masturbation. When an individual has experienced trauma, the brain's altered response to stress and reward can complicate the experience of masturbation. For some individuals, masturbation might become a coping mechanism, a way to momentarily alleviate anxiety or numb emotional pain. However, if the trauma is directly linked to sexual abuse or cultural stigma, for some individuals, masturbation may be accompanied by feelings of guilt, shame, or distress. This emotional conflict can further modify how the brain processes sexual pleasure and stress relief. So, did any of the signs we mentioned resonate with you? We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section. As always, take care of yourself and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Amanda, for that wonderful voiceover. Hi, I'm John Martinez, a Filipino illustrator, animator, and fan artist. I'm the animator for this video, and I just want to tell you all that at the end of the day, it doesn't cost us much money or resources to be a little more kind and empathetic to the people around us. And in relation to that, I'd like to thank Psych2Go for letting me take part as they help make the world a better place by educating people about a variety of mental health related topics, one video at a time. If this is something that you too want to take part in, then feel free to check the details in the description of this video. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Peace out!